In part two, we are joined again by Facebook ads expert, legend of TikTok video as well, and multiple videos,
He is,
Jon Loomer. And we're going to be diving more into how to get success with your Facebook advertising. And we might even touch on how Jon sees maybe AI being of use with your Facebook ad strategy and development. So stay tuned.
So, hi, Mr. T. Hi, Mr. L. I was wanting to sort of give you some food for thought, because our last show we were, talking about beverages. So this time I was going to ask you, whet your appetite about superheroes. Yeah, because on daysoftheyear.com, where everybody should go and check out, there's usually something trendy.
Site, Jon, for your videos.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's National Superhero Day.
Wow.
Mine was Wonder Woman, the official,
Linda Carter,
not the movie one.
Linda Carter.
Yeah. I love the way that nobody recognized it was her, because all she did was spin.
I know. It was the glasses. They were massive glasses, so you wouldn't recognize.
I have massive glasses, but
Do you remember that original Wonder Woman, Jon?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I'm old enough to remember that. Yeah.
It was very funny because last year I was in Washington for a day. I was at a convention in Baltimore, and my daughter and I were walking around looking at the sites, and we sat in this little cafe, and we didn't realize. I was like, going, this building is opposite us, reminds me of somewing.
Yeah,
it's the FBI building. We were opposite. That's what it was. Quick. It used to pan into it, and I was there going, oh, I'm just waiting for Wonder Woman.
Do you know? I must admit, do you know who mine was when I was growing up? Was Christopher Reeve, Superman. I have to say, I loved Christopher.
Can't beat him.
Superman. That'd be great. It was so sad what happened.
I know.
So I'm between Superman and Thor, because I used to read all the X-Men comics. Thor, but I was disgusted when Hemsworth was playing Thor with a beard. He never had a beard in the comics. I was disgusted about that. But maybe
and the hair, Philip, and the hair.
Yeah, I probably was jealous.
Oh, you should go check him out. You should Google him, Jon, and you'll see some photos of.
Yeah.
He used to have this look.
I was trying to get into Game of Thrones, Jon, and it looked like I had lost the plot. I had long shoulder length hair, curly.
Yeah, go check them out, Jon. You'll be.
Yeah.
So, Jon, before we start, what would have been who is your favorite superhero?
Man, I don't know. I think at least as you're talking about Wonder Woman from the 80s and whatnot. I mean, Incredible Hulk. During that time, because it was a syndicated TV show. Between that and the Christopher Reeve Superman. I mean, that was right in the middle of my childhood for sure.
You can't beat those shows. They don't make them like they used to.
Yeah, the original Superman theme tune was it's very uplifting, isn't it? So
now that's in my head now for the day. Thanks.
Yeah. But listen, if you're back,
we've got a superhero anyway here today.
We have Jon. We do. Yeah, we have our Facebook ad superhero, Jon Loomer.
There you go, Jon. You could actually, have design a T-shirt now. You could be the superhero to Facebook ads.
Big J on the front of your chest or something. No, we're not selling it. We're not selling it.
He's not buying it, Philip.
No. Well, listen. Anyway, great to have you listening to us here in Dublin South FM. We are joined again by the wonderful Jon Loomer of Jon Loomer Digital, world-renowned Facebook ad expert. If you missed our first chat with Jon, it's on the Let's Get Social podcast on Podbean, iTunes, and Dublin South FM. So definitely welcome back, Jon. Looking forward to getting more Facebook ad insights with you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
And if you want to go see Jon with us, go check us out on YouTube and hit the bell, subscribe, and even leave him a comment, because he might have an answer to your question that he doesn't cover today.
Absolutely. And if you have any other questions or show topics you'd like us to maybe consider, inquiries at dublinsouthfm.ie. Drop us an email. We'd love to hear from you.
So Philip, we will continue on. We were lingering on a question, and Jon was he was about to dive off into the wonderful world of Facebook ads even more. So, so Jon, going back on what we were talking about, don't want to wear you out totally, but what did you want to sort of just kind of further go down the road with there? Because sometimes people are kind of like, oh, what do I do? You know, it's just, it can be fearful for people to go on and do a Facebook ad, you know, like we were saying, like traffic or awareness, or, you know, what you want them to do kind of thing, you know?
I think ultimately you just need to keep it simple. I mean, especially if we're looking at low budgets, have reasonable expectations of what you can accomplish with a low budget, and have a very specific goal. You know, what are you trying to do? You can't say, I'm going to put this ad out and hopefully it's going to lead to more people coming to my business and more sales and more leads. And, you have to have a very specific goal of what you're trying to accomplish with it. So then you can measure against it. I think we often overcomplicate that. So
you can't just have a general you're not going to hit the mark with something generic. You need to be focused on somebody's pain point in regard to what they would come to you for as a solution.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it, but it's also in terms of measurement and what is it you're looking to accomplish, so that you can look in your results to determine whether this worked or not.
Yeah. Like, I think, I don't know if you come across this, Jon, with clients that you work with. It certainly seems to be evident, not just across Facebook ads, but just social media in general, is that it's almost like we've got stuck into this sort of instant gratification, instant results, that there's very little patience, and that is the same with Facebook ads, that, you have to allow Facebook, obviously with proper targeting and budget considerations, and understand what you're trying to achieve. But you still have to give it time. You can't expect suddenly, well, the ad's been running a week and we haven't got 100,000 worth of sales, that there has to be an element of patience and realism. Like, from your experience, let's just say, okay, an advertiser, they've moved off their 50 maybe a month, and they're now maybe spending 500, 1,000, maybe 1,500 a month. Are there certain kind of key metrics that you feel that maybe they should start to dial into, whether it be cost per click, other kind of key engagements around their ad types that they should start to kind of monitor and watch and maybe kind of test? I suppose one thing I just wanted to ask you as well, but in that question, have you found from testing whether it is good to lump various, say, interest groups all into one, or whether to have multiple ad sets around, say, one interest group to see if particular interest groups perform better than other groups, if that makes sense?
Oh, it does. So first of all, in terms of measurement, again, I think we need to keep it simple for the most part. It's what was the goal action we're looking for? How many of those did we get? How much did I spend? What's my cost per that thing? Because the reality is, like, all the other metrics maybe contributed to that, but they're somewhat independent in a way as well. Because, like, if for example, you're like, oh, I need to get my cost per click down because that'll get my cost per conversion down. That's not necessarily the case. Or I need to get my CPM down, which is the cost just to reach people, because that's why my cost per conversion is so high. First of all, it's really hard to manipulate CPMs. It just is. There's just so many factors that contribute to that. So I think we can get lost worrying about things like, oh, what is my click-through rate? Like, well, once again, just because it's a high rate of click-through doesn't mean when they get to your website, they're going to actually do anything. And that's what's most important. So usually, at least. So that's the first thing, is like, especially in the early going, I wouldn't get distracted about all these other metrics and just focus on, what your primary goal is and what the cost is to get that thing. Because the other things can lead to paralysis by analysis.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then in terms of the interest stuff, I think this is again an example of like how things used to be and how I really wouldn't even bother with a lot of that or worry too much about that these days. And there's a primary reason for that. So when we talk about interest, I mean, first of all, yes, a bunch of interests have been removed. By the way, if you wanted to, you can still target the Jon Loomer digital interest. It still exists. But so many of them have been removed. So it's much less useful. But the other thing is, if you're optimizing for any type of conversion, and I think most people don't even realize this, if you use interests, Facebook automatically turns on the detailed targeting expansion, which is advanced detailed targeting now. So what that means is you say you want to target these people, Facebook, if they need to, and this is just like such a black box, we don't know when they expand, we don't know how much they expand or anything like that. They will go beyond that audience anyway. So if you start, if you're super concerned about, which people in this audience versus which people in that audience and what's more effective, it's half the time you don't know if the people in your targeted audience were the ones who led to your conversions in the first place because of the way expansion works. So if you use interests, I would absolutely just advocate, throw a bunch of them in there, as opposed to feeling like you got to slice and dice this thing, because that slicing and dicing just does. It's something I used to do. It's just not. It doesn't make sense with the way the system currently works because of expansion.
So, in other words, be specific with certain interests. Don't go for
not necessarily because the algorithm's going to move beyond it anyway. Right. So it's basically, if you use there's an argument here, and it's something that I've been experimenting more and more these days, is like, don't use interest at all. Don't use any target. And just go 100% broad if you are optimizing for a conversion of some kind.
Okay, so say for example, you are a hairdresser. Sorry, Philip, have to bring the hair in. And you are trying to attract, I don't know, Philip, are you trying to attract some brides? Maybe, it's coming into wedding season. When you're doing your ad, Philip, what are you going to try to attract them to come into the salon, or are you going to try to buy your products from the salon? What would you do then, Jon? They have interests in getting married, want to look good.
Well, so once again, you're a local business. So first of all, just being completely broad within the area, but probably focusing on women is the first place to start. Now, if you want to create an ad that's specific to getting married, I think you got to remember, like, as far as I remember, they still have those interesting behaviors for you're engaged and looking to be married in the next year or whatever. But it's so incomplete though too. But you could try it so that you can create an ad that's hyper focused with copy and created for those people. But again, I don't know how necessary it is these days. So like, if you are a local business, and you are focused on catering to brides primarily, I would still say, while you should experiment always with different approaches and maybe try interests.
Mother the bride in, get the
you can try different things. I wouldn't be surprised if ultimately your most effective approach is just going broad, not only because kind of the way algorithms work and whatnot, but also because that information is incomplete anyway. Not everybody's putting that into their Facebook profile. Right. So the bottom line too is,
although I don't know, because a lot of women out there would be putting up and hashtag engaged and all that kind of thing, so
True. But also remember, you're going to be reaching people on Instagram as well.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff isn't there.
Probably more Instagram based.
It could be. Well, so when you reach people on Instagram, they might not be active on Facebook, right?
True.
So
my kids think no one is on Facebook. You know?
And that's the thing too. It's like, so what percentage of your target audience who is likely to indicate that they are engaged? I mean, look, it's largely 30-ish and down to 20-ish. A lot of those people are gonna be on Instagram.
True.
So
Philip, do your ads on Instagram, right?
Yeah, Instagram, on TikTok. Yeah, indeed. Just a question for you, John. That we've been asked, and there seems to be difference of opinion, but we'd be interested to get your thoughts on this, John. When someone is in there, essentially the ad placement kind of part of Ads Manager, Facebook tends to, and it even has, well, from memory now, it still has the automatic sort of as recommended, where it really pulls your ad in feeds, in reels, et cetera. Do you, from your experience, is there a time and place when going automatic is fine, or should people kind of go in and manually select, I don't want it in display, I want it just going on the Facebook feed, and I just want it going on Instagram on these locations? Just you'd be interested to get your thoughts on that.
So first of all, if you're optimizing for any type of conversion, I see really no reason but to go all placements. And the reason for that is kind of what we talked about, I think the last time, is related to optimization, is that the algorithm is constantly trying to find the most conversions it can for you at the lowest cost. And it will adjust based on how those placements are performing. All right. So if a placement is completely worthless, it won't even try. So this is something I've found, like the example with Audience Network. If you're optimizing for a link click landing page view, all of a sudden it'll start pummeling that placement because that's where you get all the cheap clicks.
Yeah.
But if you optimize for conversion, suddenly it doesn't even try because it knows that you're not going to get that quality action. So the people who are going in there and manually selecting placements when optimizing for conversion, I think, look, I did that back in the day too, but I just don't think it's necessary anymore.
Yeah.
You're trying to outsmart the algorithm. A lot of times, I think it's important that just because a placement isn't leading to conversions doesn't mean it's not helpful, right? So, for example, you might have a placement that is running that's cheap, and you're getting lots of impressions, and people may see it, they don't act on it, and then when they see your ad in newsfeed, then they act on it, right? So I think that's important to understand. That the algorithm understands a lot. They know a lot about everybody and what they're most likely to engage with by placement, by ad type, and everything else. So to restrict the algorithm and say, no, I know what's best, just go newsfeed, is usually going to make it more expensive for yourself. By removing options, and forcing the algorithm to do this one thing, not only are you focused on the most high quality placement, is also the most competitive, but by removing options and forcing the algorithm, it's the algorithm is like
it's harder.
Its hands are tied. Hands are tied. If it has any hands, the algorithm is like, we have to send it here. We have no choice, and that's going to make your cost just to reach people there higher,
more expensive.
It's a bit like, at Christmas time and you're invited to all these parties and you go, no, I'm not going to go to this one. No, I'm not going to go to that one. And then you should have gone to all of them.
Yeah. Well, it's really, and really, look, this is one of those things too, to monitor. Like almost everything I tell people is like, this is what I think and what I recommend, but there's no like 100% always do it this way. Right. So start with all placements, but you should monitor it. So you can actually do breakdowns. Like this is one reason to use Ads Manager. we can break it down by placement to see how each placement is performing. Again, it's not that a placement isn't leading to your desired action that should be a problem. The problem would be if, for whatever reason, the algorithm's sending a high percentage of your budget to that placement that's not performing. Yeah. That's when it's an issue.
Right.
So then it's like, okay, well, I don't want that to happen. So then you remove a placement, but that's usually not going to be the case because that's just, the algorithm is pretty smart these days.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
I was going to say, Philip, that's really interesting because, we're all kind of thinking what's the best strategy to do. And it's, as you say, is give yourself the more options, the better. Don't feel, you should be removing certain things and then go, maybe, just keep it, tick all the boxes. And that could be a way forward for you to be seen on places that you wouldn't normally be seen.
Right. Yeah. Look, it's an approach that I've been slow to come around to as well, because I was skeptical, and I was the person who either selected specific placements and also, like I said, just hyper-targeted, micro-targeted, because I felt like I did a better job than trusting the algorithm. Yeah. But I think that's changed. And so the algorithm is smarter and faster than we are. Now, there are a couple weaknesses that I said, we should watch out for. But when it comes to targeting and when it comes to placements in particular, I mean, those are things like, don't try to outsmart it. I mean, you could try. See what happens when you try to outsmart it compared to your own results, right? And and the reality is, I think you'll keep seeing that the algorithm is usually going to be more efficient than all the little changes that you tried to make.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's probably the same analogy when you look at, say, Google. When you put in a search into Google, it wants to give you back the best results for your search so that you stay on Google and you're not toddling over to Microsoft Edge or Bing or whatever. It's probably the same with Facebook. They want to, help your ad succeed so that you continue to pay and spend money. And
they go, come back, we'll help you more.
But you've made, I think, the reason why I wanted to ask the question is I think you've made a great point that I think listeners need to just kind of take a moment to remember, is that, as you said in show 1, when you look at what you're optimizing for in your end goal, and maybe you're choosing a traffic ad, that you're very cognizant that Facebook will try and get you as much traffic as it can. But if you are trying to optimize for sales, but you're using traffic and you're selecting everywhere, Facebook is just trying to give you the optimum around traffic as opposed to leads, etc. So I think that's just is such an important point. That's is a real takeaway for me, and I think for listeners. So
Right. I think it's important to remember that oftentimes that not all traffic is created equal. That paid traffic is not the same as organic traffic. Like someone who organically comes to your website, either someone who's a repeat visitor or they were referred there by a Google search or something, and they're usually going to be very high quality in most cases, as opposed to, you have to remember the different ways that an ad can drive people there, whether it's accidental clicks and click fraud and things like that. Those are just things you have to watch out for, that you can get low quality as a result of that.
Well, as you were saying, if they've come visited your website and they've gone, had a wee look around, and they're thinking, I need to do a course on short form video, right? We'll talk about that later. When it comes to ads and retargeting, what's your top tip, so to speak, then? Because I know people are kind of getting a bit wary because, pixel and making sure it's, it's embedded right and all that kind of stuff.
Right. So look, I still do some retargeting because.
Do you do retargeting ads?
I do some.
Yeah.
So right now I do have this new training, and I prefer, and this is also kind of a preference. I prefer that the people who sign up for my training are those people who already know who I am. And it's not just people who just stumbled on my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they know what they're getting, as opposed to,
what are they getting, Jon?
Well, in terms of like my coaching style and whatnot, right? So,
right, okay.
And so someone who's been to my website, who's watched my videos, has read my blog post, as opposed to someone who just,
randomly finds you, whatever.
Randomly finds me. I'd honestly rather they just consume my content for a while first. But anyway, so there's some of that remarketing. I'm also doing something that's a little bit like what I used to do way back in the day. But during my journey with short form video, I quickly realized how powerful short form video was because of that emotional connection you make with people. So that got me thinking. It's like, well, these people who are watching these videos are really important. How can I leverage that? So I've started creating audiences of people who watched my short form videos to completion and remarketing to them specifically, and using a reach campaign in these cases, because these are small audiences, to either get them to sign up for my training, or honestly, sometimes it's just a fun, like, hey, telling them what I'm doing. Like, I have this theory that people who watch these videos are super engaged. Is it true? Are you my people? Is what one of these ads says.
Yeah.
And they are. And it's just, it affirms, what I thought. So that's a little bit of the remarketing I do. But once again, the issue with remarketing, there are a couple of things here. The issue with remarketing is, if you're optimizing for a conversion, by default, it goes broad. But the other thing is, I'm starting to see, as I've experimented more and more with going 100% broad without targeting, and if you're optimizing for a conversion, the place it starts to get your conversions seems to be people who visit your website. Right. And which is kind of
makes sense.
It makes sense, but at the same time, it's like, that's not at all the way it used to work. Right. So like, you would never trust the Facebook ads algorithm a few years ago with zero targeting and expect the ads to be shown to people who were most engaged with you. That's why we had to use remarketing.
Yeah.
And so more and more, so like I did this experiment with quality traffic, right? So where I was optimizing for link clicks, landing page views, and one that was optimizing for that quality traffic custom event, and that custom event just does really, really well. So why is that? So like my test right now is like, okay, what if I have one ad set that's completely broad, optimizing for the custom event traffic, or the quality traffic custom event. One's completely broad, but excluding my website visitors. That should help us understand how much remarketing it's actually doing, even though we're not telling it to remarket. I know this is kind of rabbit hole, brain crazy stuff, but but more and more, I am realizing that the algorithms, it needs something to determine how it's going to get you these results. And if you're optimizing for an action that happens on your website with this event, it's logically going to start with the group of people who have been there before. So
and you're actually, they're already warmed up,
Right. So it doesn't mean you don't need to do any remarketing anymore, but there's certainly an argument to be made that especially if you have decent budgets, honestly, just going broad, you're going to be reaching, like, especially if you're doing general remarketing. What I mean by general remarketing is, like, in the past, you had a new blog post, you had this, new lead or whatever. You're like, oh, who should I go after? Who's most likely to do this thing? You would start with people who've been to your website, who have engaged with your Facebook page, who've maybe on your email list or whatever, just because they're most likely. The copy creative, it isn't catered to people who have any special engagement with you. It's just that you're trying to make it most likely to get the action that you want. When you're doing that type of ad, I'm starting to think more and more that just going broad, or at least trying it, just going broad, because it will still go after those people anyway within your audience.
Yeah. I think it could still come. I think exactly as you were saying, Jon. I think there's so many now, just kind of, I suppose, testing to a certain extent, like you're continually testing, trying different things, different types of retargeting, retargeting on scroll depth or retargeting on video views. So I think the key takeaway I've always taken with social, and particularly listening to you on the ad side, is that nothing stays static. I think you have to be constantly evolving and testing. You can't just create an ad, right? That's the format. That's the winning formula, because it's going to change. And speaking of change, and this is something that you've done brilliantly on your TikToks, because I've seen you've done numerous videos on some of the experiments when it comes to AI and chat GPT, etc. And it'd be great if you just maybe tell us about some of the things that you've done where you've gone into chat GPT to get it to, I think you've done some where you've asked it to kind of create like ad campaigns or a structure for a Facebook ad campaign around a particular objective, etc. And it's been quite amazing seeing some of what it's spit out. And how do you see AI helping Facebook advertisers, I suppose?
First of all, AI, if you're not overwhelmed, I don't know what to tell you.
We were talking about it earlier.
We are. Yes,
we've come across a website you don't want to go to see.
Well, it's funny because just being on LinkedIn, I don't know how often I think you're both on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's like my contacts, the people who I'm connected with are all just like, for the most part, like general marketers and some Facebook advertisers. But now you would think that they're all AI experts, because it's like everything is AI, ChatGPT. And like, I get it. Like we can't.
It's a new kid on the block at the minute, so.
But it's all so overwhelming as far as, it's changing so fast. There aren't any true experts. I mean, there's certainly some people you should trust more than others. Everybody's got an AI product now.
Yeah.
It's just a lot. But that said, so I've experimented with it a little bit. I mean, one thing was I asked it to, I gave it some background, right? So this is the product I'm looking to promote. This is, some of the benefits of that product. Here's my target audience, that, my ideal customer, what they look like. Craft a Facebook ad strategy that includes things like optimization and targeting and the ad copy creative, all that stuff for me. And it does. It provides a really good kind of starting point. But I think where a lot of people stop is they assume, oh, that's not a very good, like you would never use that. Well, you can also counter prompt it. So an example was someone responded that carousel ads don't work anymore. And they told you to do carousel ads. I was like, okay. I told it, it's like, okay, I don't want to do a carousel ad. I want to do a video ad. Put together a video script of what this could look like. And it did. And again, it's like, this is a refinement. It's a counter prompting. It's almost like having someone else in the room to bounce ideas off of. I think the way I see it, at least right now, and this is evolving quickly because some of this is pretty amazing when it comes to AI generated videos or images in particular. But it's really just a way to generate ideas.
Yeah.
So actually, for my training,
we all kind of get to a point where we've hit the wall. Right. We don't know what next to do. You can go and answer the public and look for questions, but you're kind of going, that's not. I need something more. So it can help you boost that sort of thought process.
Yeah, there are a couple of other ways I use it. So one, I was putting together my training for my short form video stuff. Yeah. I was like, okay, these are, I think like 10 or 11 lessons that I have so far. Again, explained what this training was going to be about and who it's going to be for. Generate 20 more ideas for lessons. And it did. And it's like, it's not like I just automatically take them all. Like, oh yeah, these are 5 more. That looks really good. Here's my updated list, provide 20 more. And it's just really helpful because it's immediate for doing that. So that's another thing that was really helpful. Another was like, I was on a client call where they had a very specific problem. I think it was related to like Shopify and the Pixel or something like that. And you can Google search problems and then get a whole list of links and things and possible explanations.
Yeah.
But I used ChatGPT and I was like, explain the problem. And it's like, how do I, what is this caused by? What should I look for? And it gave us really clear, like, we have to be very careful that it's not always facts. No. It's not always true. But the answer it gave me was very detailed and countered it, again, like when it kind of misunderstood some things, and it gave us the solution we were looking for, and it worked. Yeah. So it's stuff like that. It's super powerful. I do think it's funny because I have a video that I'm about to put out today. It's about my experiences with Google Bard. Oh
yeah.
I think that's just been totally rushed. Like, again, you have to watch for the AI just lying and just being full of crap. So like, on one hand, it was super cool because I was like, hey, I'm looking to get to learn more about Facebook advertising to help promote my business. What are some resources I use, or some people I should follow? And it included a list with me at the top, which is super cool. Except, and it was part of it is like, he's been doing this for over 10 years, accurate. And he wrote the book, the Facebook Ads Bible. I was like, I have not even written a book. Definitely not the Facebook Ads Bible, but no one would know that.
There's a title for your new book, John.
I guess so. I swear somebody has written that.
You could become the superhero of Facebook ads.
It sounds familiar, like from years ago, though. I think someone did write that. Right. It was not me. But and then beyond that, okay, then I countered it. I was like, oh, well, because there were no links or anything. So I was like, okay, you recommended Jon Loomer. Tell me more about him. And then it was like, I'm a large language model. I can't do that. Like, you just recommended him. I was like, okay, well, tell me where can I find it? Where's his website? I can't do that.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, well, you just provided a bunch of information. Where did you get that information? I can't tell you that. It's like, it was so not helpful.
Right. That sounds like Philip on certain days. I cannot see that either.
I'm not helpful, no.
Yeah. But look, so on one hand, it's super frustrating and also concerning because as a user and as a content marketer, the fact that it recommended me was great, but there's no way, like, it's worse than a Google search at this point because it wasn't even providing links or anything. Like, if they just typed in the Google search, they would get those answers, like where my website is and stuff like that. So that was really weird.
I think you're right. But I think they rushed it, John. So
they rushed it. But the bottom line is there, though. It's like, I don't want people to say, oh yes, this is all a bunch of crap, don't use it. It's very, very early and it is rushed. So it's going to get better, but it's going to be interesting to see how all that evolves, certainly.
So keeping on the future, what do you see apart from AI regarding helping you with maybe even crafting your Facebook captions for your ads? Maybe that's maybe an easier way to go. What kind of sort of trends and exciting things do you see coming down the tracks for people wanting to, will I take the venture into Facebook ads? What would you say?
In terms of Facebook ads, are we still thinking AI?
Are you saying no? Well, I don't know. Would you say the same thing?
Well, I do. I think it's related. Like, I think, for example, chatbots using AI with Facebook ads could be really powerful. That you can.
Although you're not going to be frustrated with chatbots, when you go in and they don't.
I'm talking about the new chatbots. They're powered by GPT-4 as opposed to whatever Google Bard is powered by. It's not working. Could be super powerful. Like, if you can teach it with the content from your website, so you wouldn't really like whoever you use for support, you could then dedicate them to do other things, because then the chatbot could largely handle that stuff once it's super accurate, obviously. So I think that's one thing. But as personally, my biggest challenge with ads is creative, like images and stuff.
Just going to say that, because like I would use Canva and that, and they've done a huge amount of sort of with their magic write and stuff. So maybe that is an element that might change, possibly, kind of AI implementation within the Facebook ad creation part of ads.
That sounds likely.
I think that does make sense. But that's going to get better. But I think the thing that everyone has to understand, like for a lot of these things, whether it's your Facebook ads and how AI can make it easier, all it does though is it raises the bar. So now everybody can create these really nice looking images. And let's say that for argument's sake, that you could use AI generated copy for your ads, for your website, and it's impeccable and perfect and great, and anybody could do it. Well, then what's separating you from everybody else?
Everybody else, yeah, exactly.
And there's still got to be some sort of differentiator. So it's like whenever I hear people talk about it's going to cost people jobs and this and that, like, well, if everyone is capable of doing the same thing, you still need an expert who's able to make you better than everyone else. It just raises the bar. It makes it more challenging.
Well, there's only one Jon Loomer. That's all.
Exactly.
For now, actually, no. Actually, I got a message.
Say AI video, and someone.
I got a message the other day. It's like, are you the Jon Loomer we met at the bar in Arizona? Like, no.
But I wrote the Bible to Facebook.
Yes, apparently.
Was he wearing a baseball hat?
Well, it's hard to believe, Emer and John, but we've come to the end of part 2.
John, will you come back? Because I know this is going to ever evolve, and there's always we didn't even hit about mistakes that people do with Facebook ads.
People don't make mistakes, so.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Maybe you'll do a video on that.
Go on to Jam's website. Loads of content there. And
Definitely.
speaking, best place probably is it your website, Jon Loomer Digital?
Yeah, jonloomer.com is a really good place to start. And otherwise, I'm pretty easy to find on any social network. It's usually at Jon Loomer. I do have a podcast, which a lot of the short episodes are actually repurposing of a lot of the videos. But that's the Pubcast with Jon Loomer, and we have an occasional long episode too.
Excellent.
Cool. Well, we'll tag you, as they say, when we're going out air on Dublin South FM, won't we, Philip?
Yeah,
and
absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, on YouTube and on Spotify podcasts. Podbeam. It is Friday, isn't it? And all the other platforms where you get your
website. Yeah, absolutely. And certainly, if you want to see us talking to John, do head over to the Let's Get Social Show YouTube channel. Subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications, and sure, leave us a comment. Let us know how we are doing. Any questions on this show, we can pass them on to John. He can.
Yes, John, can we do that?
Of course.
And if you have any emails you want to send us, send them into inquiries@dublinsouthfm.ie. So, Philip,
John, it's been a pleasure.
Come back next week, will you?
Come back for part. We'll do a 25
part 77.
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me.
No, it's been great. Thanks so much for coming on and giving us all your brilliant insights.
Yeah. So, guys, do tune in for our next show next week. And listen, do follow John, follow us, and we'll see you for the next show. Thanks a million.
Take care. Bye-bye.